What do you think about skill-based matchmaking? So for those of you not familiar, skill-based matchmaking, or SBMM, is where games like Call of Duty will dynamically change which lobbies you're being placed into and will place you in there based on like your KD, based on playtime level, that type of thing. And the developer's idea is that it makes sure that every player ends up in a lobby consistently that's challenging. You know, you're not ending up with like a professional player playing against 12-year-olds. The professional player will be playing with other professional players or people who are on their level, roughly. And so it should make every game difficult and challenging. That's the idea behind it. For players, often it just feels like every game is sweaty, every game is difficult, there's no chill anymore, you don't get to just curb stomp people. Every game you have to be on your best behavior, and so a lot of players don't like it. That's there, so if everybody can go in and vote. The reason I'm pulling this up, and we'll look at the results here in just a minute while you guys vote on that. The reason I wanted to bring this up is because the devs of Call of Duty, they went over to Reddit and didn't ask me anything in the AMA. And they took questions ahead of time. And pretty much all of the questions were about skill-based matchmaking. It's, you know, guys, just address skill-based matchmaking. I can't generate an enjoyable experience playing with my less skilled friends as they get dragged into my lobbies, which are inevitably always filled with sweats. Please address this, as the community has already notated it as the biggest issue plaguing the industry at the moment. Can you tell us everything about the matchmaking practices going on? I feel like I'm playing every time out of my region, and every match feels and plays like a final tournament. I think casual multiplayer playlists should not feel like that or feel like work. Will you be turning down skill-based matchmaking? It's exhausting going against sweats, tryhards 90% of the games. I get one game of casual play, but do pretty good, then I'm off to the races once again. Why don't you guys get rid of skill-based matchmaking in public matches? Blah, blah, blah. Like, it's all over the place. People constantly bringing this up. And there's been articles written, like this one, from Games Radar. Wanting an even playing field in your online lobbies isn't a skill issue. This is an opinion piece, to be clear. It's pretty simple. Skill-based matchmaking improves first-person shooters for most players. The idea just being that for every time that you play against a noob or somebody that you curb stomp, you're having a great time. Those other people are not. The person being stomped on is having a really bad time. So the idea is it gives everyone a similar experience. Now, the critics would be like, who cares? If everybody's experience is the same, it doesn't help because the experience is bad, right? Like, didn't actually do anything. So your responses that you guys have voted on thus far are as such. 55-ish% of you say remove it in unranked, but keep it in ranked, which is my personal stance, and I'll explain why in a moment. 22% of you say I like it, makes sense. 13% say you don't care, and 10% of you say it sucks, remove it. The reason why I take the stance of remove it in unranked, but keep it in ranked, is because in unranked, if you remove skill-based matchmaking and it is just a total free-for-all, it's just a toss-up. You go in, you're playing unranked, you might get some very sweaty players. You might play against a pro that gets 50 kills in the lobby, sure. But chances are you won't, because people that are really good at the game often are grinding ranked modes, so you're not going to see them in casual matches very often. So that's one thing. You know, I think that it would address that. And secondly, it would just open everything up to just randomized matches, and it would be fine. And if you want consistently difficult and challenging matches, just put it in a ranked mode. It doesn't have to be that complicated. Now, the thing with all of this is, like, if everybody agrees on this and everybody's saying that, like, you should be getting rid of skill-based matchmaking, why don't they do it? Well, it's either just incompetence, or it's that they have stats that are demonstrating this is actually something that's a net positive for players. And this is something we've seen in the past with other games where it's not common sense. It goes against your intuitions, where sometimes something that players don't like or say they don't like actually leads to more consistent engagement, more consistent playtime hours. It could be the case that when you have skill-based matchmaking, people play more matches than if they're able to just curb stomp on everybody in random matches. I don't know though, but this is part of the thing, is that they haven't said this. Like, they'll say stuff like, I think it wasn't Sledgehammer Games, it was maybe when Warzone first dropped or something like that, but one of the devs said that they did skill-based matchmaking testing and they found that consistently it led to players playing more often for longer periods of time. So even though they said they didn't like it, they were playing the game more as a result of it. So they're keeping it. And I would love to see the data for that. Like, I would just find it so fascinating. But we've said many times before on this channel that often perception is more important than reality. Or as some people say, perception is reality. Because if the perception is that skill-based matchmaking is killing the game, they have to address it. Like, they have to deal with that. And if they want some quick brownie points, they can get rid of it in public lobbies and do some testing with it, whatever. I will say it is freaking hilarious to me that you'll see professional streamers and COD players bitching about skill-based matchmaking. And it's like, let's be honest, like, you just want to be able to hop on stream and play games where you're curb stomping on people with like a 1 KD or a 1.5 KD because you have a 6 KD, you know, like, shut up. You know, nobody feels bad for you that, oh no, you have a little bit of challenge and you're a world-class player. You know, I respectfully don't give a shit. But for like the average consumer, I can see why they would want to try and match it up a little more consistently than that. But that's why, again, I think just removing it, as the majority of you guys voted, I think if you just removed it from unranked, put it in ranked, it fixes all the problems and everybody can be happy. If you want just the casual experience where it's a free-for-all, go in unranked, whatever. If you want a not very challenging experience, go in ranked. Or if you want a really challenging experience, you go in ranked and it'll be consistently challenging. If you want the free-for-all, you can do that in unranked. Easy peasy. You just open it up. Just do an audio. Use a VPN. Yeah. Activision said that skill-based matchmaking exists in COD since 2010 or 11, but it was weaker than it is now. Well, and they had much fewer players than now. I mean, now these games are bigger than ever. They love their numbers and not player fun in a balanced way, I suppose. Yeah, well, it's something that a lot of developers have spoken to recently. There's that Gabe Newell interview just the other day where he just described how when they were developing the original Half-Life games, it was like, just because something is realistic doesn't mean that it's fun. Just because something might make sense in one context doesn't mean it'll make for a good video game or a fun video game. And I think that's really valid. Like, there's a difference between realism. There's a difference between giving customers maybe what they think they want and what's actually going to be the most fun at the end of the day. That's why, you know, game designers are experts in their own field. I mean, it's not as simple as just throwing a game together. With all this, I mean, it's still just so funny that they refuse seemingly to talk about it, because it seems like it should be a layup. Like, just talk about it openly, and if players really want no skill-based matchmaking, just remove it for the easy brownie points. Like, why not? And then if it doesn't work, you can introduce it again. Like, but just do that. But let's be honest, I think Activision Blizzard at this point, they are very, very fractured as a studio. Like, the quality of their work is so inconsistent, it's crazy. Who's trusting them to do anything? Demons, I would be happy if they showed anything or talk about it, let alone remove it from pubs. I thought it was for safety for people that struggle playing games, but it's not fun even for casuals. Well, yeah, it makes it so casuals hop in the lobby and they might have one really easy match, but if they do well, they will then immediately get slingshotted up the ranks into a more difficult lobby, and so then they get curb stomped. So it's just this yo-yo between doing okay in a match and then getting curb stomped and then doing pretty good and then curb stomped and then doing pretty good and curb stomped. And it's just a constant fluctuating thing that isn't very fun, which is why I think what we have now is just the worst case scenario for both. Like, it's not the best of both worlds, it's the worst of both worlds. Like, just pick one and stick to it. Like, it just drives me crazy. Skill-based matchmaking thinks I'm better than I am. It can feel like that for sure. Not even pro players like Scum have a 6 KD due to skill-based matchmaking. Well, I think that was their goal, was to reduce the peak of the peak. Because let's be honest, like, what was that? Hold on, let me pull it up. There was, I think it was Aiden. Like, what happened in this match, like he goes in, and if this is the match I'm thinking of, which it might, no, might be. I think this is Verdansk. What he did is he goes into quads playing solo. So he's a one-person team, and he's fighting teams of 4. And he's doing that because at this particular point in the game's history, basically what would happen is they would take the KD of the team and like average it. But for him, it would mean that he could basically end up in lobbies with teams with really low KDs because he was only one person and the other team was 4. So they'd be averaged differently. That's my understanding, which is why the lobby he's in is so much easier. Like if he has, say, a 3 KD or a 4 KD, you would think he'd be playing against other 4 KD players, but no, he's playing against 1 KD players because they divide his by 4 for the squad of 4, even though he's playing alone, right? So he goes in and just curb stomps people that are significantly worse than him. And you see by the end of the match, he's all the way up at 59 kills, and he finishes this out with 60 kills. And it's pretty much because he's, what is it, boosting? I think it's boosting when you you artificially drop your KD so you get into easier lobbies. Like it's basically what this is. Still, Aiden is a world-class player. I mean, he's an amazing player, there's no doubt. But the only reason he was able to get this record break was because of how this matchmaking system handled KDs and stuff, and it just kind of broke. And so, like, I think Activision developers look at this and see this as a problem because one guy is going into a lobby with more casual players and ruining their day by just curb stomping on them, you know, for some quick views and stuff. Reverse boosting, it's called. Okay, reverse boosting. I can understand why they look at this and they see this as a problem. The question is whether skill-based matchmaking fixes it. And what very well could be the case is that this is just a very vocal minority. It could be that the vast majority of players don't see this as that big of a deal. A lot of casual players might not even know what skill-based matchmaking is. And, you know, they don't really care and they're just having a good time playing the game. I don't think skill-based matchmaking is what's killing Call of Duty. What's killing Call of Duty is it's like Fortnite-ification with them trying to get in here and turn everything into Fortnite. But that's just me. Like, look at that. The fact that he's still alive after that, when they're driving straight, he's the only one in the car in the driver's seat and they don't shoot him. Like, I'm not very good at these games. In my lobbies, if I was in this car, I would be dead. I would be shot out of this instantly. So like he's in a lobby that is like, and look at these people charging. Like who charges up the stairs with like that? Like granted this is 2 years ago, but I don't think players have been that dull for I just don't see that as a thing. You know, like he's in a very, very easy lobby, way weaker than him. But this is what can happen if you don't have something like skill-based matchmaking. So I think skill-based matchmaking is trying to address a serious, like an actual problem, a real problem. But like, I still think that you could have a solution that keeps both parties happy, where if you want to play matches like this and it's a total free-for-all, you can go unranked. But at the end of the day, I mean, maybe with all of this, it is just about preservation of the casual player because they're the ones that mostly will suffer. And so maybe for them, it's just like they've looked at the numbers and they've seen that casual gamers are overwhelmingly the ones that spend money on the games. So they should just keep the casual players more happy. And maybe that's the whole play. Maybe that's the whole thing. Playing against better players when I was younger made me a better player today, but with skill-based matchmaking, I'm not getting better. I play people the same as me. Listen, I mean, I always feel like when I pop into the skill-based matchmaking servers, I always feel like personally, I'm immediately going up against people that are a good bit better than me. Which, like, it's challenging and keeps the game engaging, but yeah, I can see why people get frustrated with it. Yeah, Lucas, in random matchmaking, you get curb stomped by 3 players. In skill-based matchmaking, you get curb stomped by everyone. Yeah, and one of the big problems with SBMM is bad connections. Well, perhaps that's one of the secret, or not so secret, problems with all of it, is when they're trying to match you up with similar KD players and stuff. If they're like, hey, we only have this chunk of people that have would fit into this tier of player with these other players, they have to pull them from farther and farther away to toss them in a lobby together. And so the ping times are all over the place. Connections are varied. You know, if you have a game that has like 44 million players actively, like in a single day, like Fortnite had, then it's probably not a problem. But I don't know, does Fortnite even have skill-based matchmaking? Having a harder match and winning it gives you good emotions, and that means you're going to play the game again. Yeah, and I think it also, players maybe are just more likely to stay in the game and spend money when they feel like they died fairly against somebody who is just honestly better than them, than when they're playing a game and get like absolutely curb stomped by like an Aiden getting a 60 kill game as a solo player in quads. You know, so maybe, I don't know. But it's an interesting issue, and it's one that, certainly the devs have thought a lot about. It's just funny that they kind of refuse to talk about it. It seems like they should just have very clear answers. Listen, we've done the research. We have the numbers. This is what the data shows. This is why it works the way it does. We will not take any further questions. That's what it is. Suck it. Like, if they just said that, I'd kind of respect it. Okay. But they always beat around the bush, and it's always like, well, we want to make sure everybody has a good time while playing our game. I'm like, show us why it leads to that. Like, come on. Fortnite does have SBMM. It's just overshadowed by the bots in the game. Okay. I will say I have seen a good number of bots for real. It's based off the lowest member of the party, unlike COD. Okay. Okay, interesting. I'm a console player on PS5, and I just get matched with full lobbies of PC players constantly. Can't you? I think you can turn that off, can't you? You turn off crossplay, but I mean, then it greatly increases your lobby like queue times, doesn't it? Or do they not let you turn that off anymore? Maybe they did that. Maybe they removed the ability to do that. Overwatch 2 has terrible skill-based matchmaking where if you win like 5 games, there's a chance for top tier players to be in your games warming up for competitive. This is quick play. Oh, really? Oh yeah, that sucks. Max Hoberman, he said, the ignorance here is infuriating. I see mention of the skill-based matchmaking component I designed for Halo 2 and 3 on this site every so often. It's usually mentioned reverently, but then an outlier jumps in and claims it can't work today. I disagree. What I implemented cleanly divided the space into ranked and unranked matches playlists. Ranked filtered opponents based on level. This was for when you wanted a competitive match, but even then I intentionally allowed variability in the range of levels we matched you with. This variability was a topic of hot debate internally during development 20 years ago. Obviously, no one wants to get stomped continuously. On the flip side, it gets dull for most people continuously stomping on others. However, it is fun to have the upper hand some of the time. But by intentionally allowing the range of skills to match together, we provided 3 experiences in ranked matchmaking. An easier one where you can kick butt, a harder one where you're likely outmatched, and an evenly matched one. My theory was that a good mix of these was ideal. Why not always evenly match people though? My reasoning was that these are actually the most stressful matches of the set. Sure, they're the most fun to watch for spectators. Games come down to the wire. That's because the team that wins is the team that outperforms expectations. The failure of modern skill-based matchmaking, in my humble opinion, is that it's designed to maximize these perfect match scenarios and minimize the others. When it's working, the majority or a majority of games become super tight, super stressful. That's not fun for most players. Where's the variability? The system that I designed for ranked playlists ensured a healthy mix. Sure, it sucks watching your favorite team get their butt kicked, but it comes full circle when they're the ones kicking butt. Throw in tight, evenly matched games every so often, and that's a ton of fun. I haven't even gotten to the unranked playlists yet. I designed these not to factor in skill or level in the search for opponents. Yes, our engineers utilized the same code base, kept skill level as a search criteria, but we substantially deprioritized it in the matchmaking. We also didn't track skill level globally, only per playlist. The net result was that unranked matchmaking allowed a very wide range of skill levels to match together for what everyone agreed was casual, inconsequential fun. Again, that's the way it should be in my opinion. Since the natural level or skill level distribution of players follows a bell curve, there are outliers, inherent low skill and high skill players. Characterizing the high skill ones as sweaty teens hopped up on Monster Energy is really disrespectful. Segregating high skill players from the population at large, forcing long wait times on them, is a form of discrimination. Designers should strive to find a way that players of all skill levels can have fun together. Casual, inconsequential, unranked matchmaking is one way. I dabbled with handicap settings and asymmetric game mode design as others. Game devs shouldn't take the easy way out and default to segregation, though. There's far more that can be done. Derogatory views like this among game devs is a cop-out and a disservice to players. Specifically, he's referring to this Games Radar opinion piece that we looked at, where they were just saying for tryhards and for like pros and really, really skilled players to complain about SBMM, it's like cry me a river. I generally take the stance that, again, if you're sitting with a 3 or 4 KD and you're asking to be put into lobbies with noobs and novices, I'm like, okay, like I don't, you're good at the game, like congratulations. So I don't find that to be super disrespectful. I'm like, yeah, you're more talented than me, shut up. But I get what he's saying. And to me, I mean, I think his methodology is precise. Like, I think it's exactly right. Just because on paper and in the stats, you might think, okay, well, evenly matched games makes it the most fair. So every game comes down to the wire. That'll make it more fun to watch and to like participate in with regard to like streams and stuff. So we'll do that. Just keep every match super, super tight. But that isn't necessarily what's fun. The variability is where the fun comes in. And so I can understand that. Yeah, using the word discrimination as if we were talking about someone firing a person for being in a wheelchair is laughable. I will say, like, this on a technical level, yeah, word for word, it is discriminatory to treat this group of players differently because they happen to be better at the game. I think that's maybe a little dramatic, because the word discrimination brings with it a lot of baggage, let's just say. But I get what he's trying to say, you know. But that's why, again, like, I think the way you get around this, ranked with SBMM, unranked is a free-for-all. Like, just easy peasy. Easy peasy. Maybe you even can go in and you have easy lobbies. Like, I don't know if Fortnite has this, but maybe you have like a kids lobby where it's like if your KD is below a 1, you're the only people allowed in that lobby. Maybe like do something like that, you know? If you have enough players, why not? He took my thing. Red flag.